Hello and welcome to the Dad and Buried podcast. My name is Mike, aka Dad and Buried. I'm here with my co-host Pete. It's been a few weeks, Pete. What have you been up to?
Oh, what haven't I been up to?
Well, you got to tell me, what haven't you done? You haven't gone bowling?
I haven't gone bowling. I haven't
long
stopped
list.
going to the movie theater. That's for sure. I go to the movie theater all the time these
Oh,
days.
please. Did you see The Eternals?
Do you know what I saw recently? No, but you know what I saw is Dune in the theater.
No. You went to the theater?
Yeah.
I am dying to go see that. I haven't watched it on HBO Max yet, even though I have it, because I want to see it in the theater.
Okay. Here and I don't know. I know you know me as my favorite movie is I Am Legend.
I Am Legend.
So you know that.
Yes.
It just so happens my second favorite movie happens to be Dune.
The David Lynch version.
The original version, which I watched recently, and just absolutely 100% reaffirmed how unbelievably fucking cool that movie was. Like, not cool. I don't mean cool. I mean, what an incredible story. A world that has been built around, like, it's basically, I found out that
it was books, right? You know, it was based on books.
Yeah, of course. Yes. But
Right,
who the hell has time to read those stupid pieces of shit?
Yeah, honestly.
You know, talking movies, baby. So
Vin Diesel movie. Movies.
It came out the same year or just after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Now, what this movie is, directed by David Lynch, right?
Mm-hmm. At one point, he was in talks to direct Return of the Jedi.
You know what it is? It is it hit me. It is a completely grown up, completely like there's nothing childish about it. It is entirely the most sophisticated grown up movie about space. And the thing that sucks about it the most, because it is so, if you watch it, it is so elaborate. It was made in 1984, and I swear to God, it holds up as if it was made in 2022.
Couple things really quickly. First, I want to let everybody know the topic tonight is ways that your kids surprise you.
No.
None of the ways that my kids surprise me are as surprising as the fact that Pete likes David Lynch's Dune, which is honestly like one of the sweatiest, most uncomfortable movies to watch. Everyone just looks like they're miserable and gross in their suits and the sand everywhere. Also, so Star Wars borrows, like the story borrows from Dune. The books existed already. Yeah. I had a friend in college who was obsessed with like the series, and like once you get into like books and 2 and 3 and all that stuff, like you need a glossary, and it's like sort of like Game of Thrones. Like you're also saying like it's like an adult version of like that kind of stuff. Game of Thrones is a little bit like that too. The books themselves are really intricate and all this like intrigue and stuff. The David Lynch one just makes me uncomfortable. I love David Lynch. That movie is just bizarre, makes me uncomfortable. How's the new one?
I mean, okay, so all right, so let's go to the new one. The new one is, so if David Lynch's Dune, I would say, is a far more sophisticated, gritty, dark version. This one is a incredibly high production value. Mm-hmm. It's good. It's not, now, all right, I've got a serious bone to pick. Dude, I sat down in the movie theater. I reserved my ticket first time in like 7 years.
Alone?
Oh, completely alone. I mean, not totally alone. I was. But with
you
about
went alone.
But I was with about 300 people.
Mm-hmm.
They had reserved seating, but I didn't even do reserved seating. I just sat spider next on some guy's lap, and it was great. Nice, it was fine. We just would take turns switching. That's the way to do it, by the way. If you just sit spider, which is where you basically wrap your legs around someone's waist while they're watching a movie, it works great.
Dude. This is more gross than David Lynch's Dune.
No, it's not. It wasn't packed at all. The movie theater was almost completely empty. And
was it an IMAX?
No, it was just a regular movie theater. Yeah. The opening screen comes up, and this is not going to ruin it. Well, it is. It's probably going to ruin it. It goes part 1.
Yeah, you didn't know that.
Really? I know. I was like, wait, part 1. I wonder they're going to tell the whole story, and then there's going to be a second part. Yeah. So
the second part, when they went into production, it wasn't until the movie did well that they actually committed to part 2. And for people that don't know, because this isn't really in the marketing, part 1 and part 2 are halves of just the first book of Dune, right? Like it's not like Dune, the first book, is part 1 and then book 2 is part 2. No, it's part 1 of book 1 and part 2 of book 1, which won't be out for like 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm dying to see it because I love the director, and he did Blade Runner 2049, and I don't like the original Blade Runner, and did not expect to like Blade Runner 2049, and I loved it so much, so I can't wait to see it.
It was amazing, especially the Blade Runner 2049 was incredible, especially Harrison Ford's wardrobe. I mean, the elaborate. I think the costume designer won like an Oscar for his T-shirt, for his gray T-shirt that he wore, and then again those blue jeans, those slightly light sort of dad jeans.
By trade in real life.
Yeah, no, but I just thought it was so good how like in 2024 or in 2042 they were just like, no, this guy would wear a gray T-shirt and like light colored, like not Levi's, like more like Lee jeans.
Wranglers.
Yeah.
I bet you Harrison Ford's a Wrangler guy.
Yeah. No, look, I was both impressed, but also very pissed and disappointed that it was only half. I mean, give me a fucking break. Like,
what's funny is
I was so looking forward to it, and everyone is excellent in it. Everyone's superb. The acting is amazing. The styling is amazing. It's just, I will say, it's got way too much exposition. Mm-hmm. It's just like constant, but even the exposition is okay.
So it's funny because I asked you like what you were up to in the 2 weeks since we recorded, and you really just sat in the theater and saw the first half of Dune. It was several weeks long, and you loved every minute of it.
And it just turns out if you ask someone if you can sit spider with them, they'll be like, well, what is that? And then when you show them, they're like, oh yeah,
no, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what I was up to, so Mom and Barry had her birthday, so we were supposed to record an episode on date night, and part of that was going to revolve around her birthday and the planning that I have to do for it, which is just stresses me out beyond belief every single year. Didn't go well this year, so after the fact. But then we went out. So we had her birthday party, like the family thing, one weekend, and then this past weekend we went out with some friends, some of whom we hadn't seen since the pandemic, really. At least I hadn't. And we had actually a really good time in your neighborhood in Williamsburg. Unfortunately, you weren't able to. Well, I texted you a few times. You didn't respond. I just assumed you were tied up. I know you were camping. And also the most momentous thing I think that happened was my kids got their first shot. I know you're waiting. You have a very special reason for your waiting for your kids. But my kids got their first vaccine shot, which is a big relief in our high risk household. We're waiting on their second shot in a few weeks, but you have a very specific reason to wait.
I want to line up all my kids' vaccines in one go. So instead of like having to go 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, no. I want 12 shots one day. Just like sort of like Wolverine or Doctor Strange, I want nothing but needles.
I was thinking
or Saw. That's what they requested. They saw the movie Saw 15 or whatever what it was, where the woman falls into the pit of needles. They're like, and they basically said, yeah, Dad, that's actually how I'd like to get.
I thought you were gonna say in the first Star Wars, in A New Hope, when they're like interrogating Princess Leia, the big floating ball with all the needles and stuff comes into the room. It's really scary, but I'm sure your kids loved it.
Yeah, they did. They really did love it. I mean, my middle daughter loves getting shot so much. She is like, don't do the arm, right my neck. Right here. Well, do it. And the doctor's like, I
request it between my toes.
Yeah.
For job interviews. I don't need anybody to know that I got my COVID shot. I'm in a very blue collar industry. They don't really like that stuff too much. But it's funny. So I put out a call for, today for stuff that people's kids have surprised them. And there were a couple of people that were like, my kids, they didn't freak out when they got their shot, or they were like willing to get the COVID shot because they kind of know what it means. And my kids were very much like that too. Obviously being aware of Mom and Barry being at higher risk, and also just wanting to get back to real life. And then the first step, I think, is everybody getting safe, everybody getting protected. I posted a video of talking to my son about it on TikTok, and it's the only thing on TikTok I've done that's gotten any traction. And one of the reasons it got traction is because a Twitter account called Libs on TikTok shared it and said I was brainwashing my son. I wish I could brainwash my kids, guys. It would really make my job a lot easier. But we are going to get into some of your responses about how your kids surprise you, and we're going to get into there's a couple of ways my kids have surprised me very recently, and I'm sure your kids are just a bundle of surprises. And we're going to get into all of that right when we get back from the break. All right, we are back tonight. We are going to be talking about the ways that our kids surprise us, whether they impress us with some skill we didn't know they had, or with behavior we didn't know they were capable of,
or whether it's like we're living with Kato from Pink Panther and he's just creeping around the apartment, surprise attacking us with karate.
Look at you with the movie references tonight. I appreciate it. Growing up, my dad used to love those movies, and my favorite parts were when Kato would jump out and they would get in fights.
It was so good. And then he's like, "Enough, not now." And he would just constantly attack him.
you know what? You never know.
And then he just ready. Clouseau residence, like after a major fight. Oh, so good.
So
man.
One thing we haven't had a chance to talk to, which I wanted to just bring up really quick, was Halloween. How did your Halloween? We know how much you hate Halloween.
Yes.
How did your Halloween go?
Well, first of all, I immediately quashed any sort of, "What are you dressing up as, Dad?" I was like, "Don't worry about it. It's your day. This is your day." But Dad, what are you gonna be? I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna live my. I said I was living my truth, which I actually didn't do.
You didn't live your truth.
No, because I was super pleasant the whole day and pleasant the whole time. But no, we went up. We went to in different neighborhoods. There's a neighborhood in Greenpoint that is in Brooklyn.
Well known.
It's beautiful. Has a lot of beautiful houses. It was great. It was actually a great vibe, great great atmosphere. It was people were just ready to be done with all the.
What did your kids dress as?
Steve.
What the hell does that mean?
Those who know will know.
Steve?
Not Alex, but Steve.
I don't know what that means. Is it like Minecraft?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Yeah,
you did. I knew it. You got it. So my son was Steve, and my daughter was a vampire of some kind. Actually, my daughter was handing out candy. So she kind of
hold on. So mergers and acquisitions, your 13-year-old.
Yeah.
Was she on her own? Was she like with friends?
She went to a party.
Like
a high school party, and it immediately got out of control. Chaperoned, but just the person who chaperoned was like, "There's like 300 people in my house." Like,
So you and your daughter handed out candies. I assume you were secretly handing out edibles to kids.
No, it wasn't. I was purely. I just couldn't get the razor blades. They were stuck in California containers. So I was at a loss. She actually handed it out at her friend's house. So she went to her friend's house. Look at that. And they handed it out to all the kids. Actually, which is an interesting twist because they got dressed up, and she was saying how much fun it was to actually just be the hander outer of candy, as opposed to like the trick or treater having to walk,
sitting is more fun. Yeah.
Sitting, by the way, it's reverse. It's people watching. All you're doing is sitting, and you can basically get the gist of it, and you get to see all the people. Although there was one house, that we came by in Greenpoint on the street that she was holding out, and they had basically erected plywood in front. It was a 2-story house. They had erected plywood in front of the house and wrapped it in like decrepit looking, like they basically painted it so it looked like it was falling down. Dude, they got a car from the junkyard, like a car that had been in a very serious accident.
Yeah.
And they put it in the front of their, and this is like in Brooklyn, there's not a lot of space. They put it
like it's smashed in.
Yeah, and then they got a stop sign, and they put it through, and then they put bodies everywhere. It was incredible. It was the most impressive. Like, you see a lot of houses that have like kind of store bought, impressive figures from
they
like
go all out, but
whatever front gate or whatever the fuck. This was like pure Brooklyn ingenuity. It's like, oh yeah, Frankie owns a junkyard. Oh yeah, you need a stop sign? I got a couple stop signs. Like, just like real actual things that had been bent and like kind of ripped. It was so very impressive.
Sounds
In
like you
full
really
entry.
enjoyed. It sounds like you really enjoyed yourself, Pete.
I
You know,
enjoyed
despite
I enjoyed this house, man. That was the commitment I enjoyed. But yeah, it was
Well,
good.
my kids, my youngest dressed as like a snake. It's kind of like a snake ninja, but he just really wanted to be a snake because he fucking loves snakes for some reason. The other day he asked, he's like, "You can get snakes as pets, right?" And I'm just like, "No, no,
Oh,
you're not
no.
gonna be that kid. We're not gonna be that house." My older son dressed as Ronin, who is like the vigilante version of Hawkeye. He's in Avengers Endgame for like 30 seconds. So like no one, like he was constantly having to explain who he was, and every once in a while when someone knew exactly who he was, it was like mind blowing. He really appreciated that. And then Mom and Barrett and I dressed as Roy Kent and Keeley, two characters from Ted Lasso, which a lot of lassos walking around, and a handful of Roy Kents, but it suits my personality well. We had a good time. I saw Corey Stoll, who's a well-known actor. He's in HBO's Scenes from a Marriage, House of Cards. I just walked by him. I didn't even know he lived in my neighborhood. So that was a fun little treat for me.
Wow,
you know?
That sounds amazing. Let me know when you actually see a star next time. That would be cool.
Wow. Well, I saw Steve Buscemi a few years ago. He lives in Park Slope, but we don't live quite over there anymore. But
oh my God, did you see the pictures of him handing out candy? That's so
and I was
good.
so pissed that I
So
wasn't there.
Him and Aiden Quinn apparently were hanging out. That's so.
Aiden Quinn?
Yeah, that was in the pay. The two guys were hit, but he had his 30 Rock.
Yeah, I know.
Like
how do you do, fellow kids?
Yeah. What's up, fellow kids? Yeah. Exactly.
Anyway, so that's what we did for Halloween. We hope you folks had a fun Halloween as well. Mom and Barry loves it, so we were happy the weather was pretty good, and we you know what? We had a good time. We didn't see any elaborate cars crash into buildings or whatever, but we were surprised by other things.
Wait,
speaking of being surprised.
Oh,
you like
okay.
that? I threw the word surprised in. I was surprised by Corey Stoll. I was like, wow, I can't believe the yellow jacket from the first Ant-Man movie lives in my neighborhood. You have any idea what I'm talking about? Of course you don't. I'm just always surprised by how many. Oh my
God, that guy is Corey Stoll. Dude, that guy, talk about like
he's bald.
Yeah, talk about deep cuts from actor. I mean, he's awesome. He's a great actor.
Yeah, he is a good actor.
But it's a deep cut.
But people know who he is, all right? Get off my back.
I don't think so. I think you actually really do. Like, I think it didn't register until you said Wasp from Ant-Man.
I'm surprised because I named a handful of things. I thought maybe you'd seen like House of Cards, Scenes from a Marriage, recent, which I haven't seen. I'm not interested in watching Scenes from a Marriage.
Yeah, no. I mean, come on. Dude, when you live it, why the Marriage Story? Like, come on. How am I going to go?
You know how many holes there are in my wall?
Oh, I don't so need to watch Marriage Story. Just watching someone else. It's like I'm doing.
I don't need to watch my life on screen just with better looking people. You know what? That's just depressing. So this week I decided. So a couple of my kids surprised me in a couple of ways over the past few weeks, and it led me to be like, you know what? I wonder what ways other people are surprised by that kid. So years ago, I wrote a blog post. So my son was in like a short film. And so we have a friend who's like a filmmaker, and he needed a kid about my son's age for a handful of scenes. And it meant like we had to drive upstate to where they were filming. I drove him alone. So like we drove like 2.5 hours, just me and my son. He was like 6 at the time. He had to do filming all day, and I wasn't even involved. I was like lurking around, but really couldn't do anything. And I remember leading up to it, I was so nervous that he was gonna have like meltdowns and not be able to focus and do all that stuff. And like he performed so well. I was so impressed and so happy with him. And like I just wrote the whole blog post. I'm like, I think the blog post was even called like "Kids Will Surprise You," because I was like, as a parent, you're like nervous, right? And a lot of times people say like, obviously kids behave a lot worse at home where they feel safe and where they can let out their emotions than they will, at school or around other people. So that when other people are like, oh, your kids are angels, or they're so great when they're at my house or whatever, you're like, what? You're like shocked. That doesn't sound like my kid. So that was a real pleasant surprise. But that was years ago, and it's been years since you.
Yeah. Since the last surprise. Yeah. Nice. Okay.
But so we had parent-teacher conferences a few weeks ago. And they were weird because they were student led. So like the kids had to like spend a few days like creating PowerPoint slides talking about like what they're learning and how it's going. And then the teacher talks to you a little bit, but like the kid's there. Like, what's the teacher really going to tell you? Like, you can't really get down to the nitty gritty about like behavior or anything like that. But they had like at some point, because he never tells me anything about what he does in school. At some point over the first couple of months, they had to like write a poem about like growing up, and we get to read his poem, and like my wife and I were like blown away at like how good the poem was. Yeah. And I'm like, I asked him, I'm like, did they give you a template? Like, what did you?
Yeah. Where'd you get this? Don't you lie to me.
Exactly.
Where'd you get this from? Yeah.
I learned it by watching, Walt Whitman. What?
But you learned it by watching me.
I was like astonished by how good it was. And that led to like me being like, wow, you know what? Maybe I don't know. Look, a lot of this is on me because I don't pay attention at all, right?
There's a lot of Oh,
I don't know a lot about what they're doing. I don't know a lot about what they're into. I really even know who they are. I drop them off at school.
Yeah.
And then I just wait for bedtime,
Right.
But yeah, I have been pleasantly surprised in several ways, and that's just by my older son. Now you have a very accomplished 13-year-old, but at this point, her accomplishments are old hat to you. You're annoyed that she's not like bringing in more income at this point, right?
Yeah, I am annoyed by that. Her small little hands used to fit right in the machinery, and now they can't get the clogs out anymore. Oh, because she only has one hand. No, but yeah, sorry. No, she was a ballerina for a long time, and it was very cool because she got to perform in the Nutcracker Lincoln Center. She's part of the New York City Ballet. She went to School of American Ballet. So that all sounds like, and it is. It is, and that was obviously I was proud of her. But I think really the thing that I think I said this before, but the moment that I was extremely proud of her, or just really like not proud, but just like so impressed was we were on the one uptown. It was packed. It's like 5 o'clock rush hour going uptown. We were like Columbus Circle. She had her hair in the bun because she had to do her hair before and then she got her homework out, and she's sitting between like, two people are standing in front of her, and just like she's like doing her math, but she's like laser focused, just like going and like looking up, doing calculations, and there were like 8 people around her who were looking at her, and then like they could tell that I was with her, and they were looking at me, and they were kind of giving me like the damn dude,
well done,
and
Dad.
I was like, yeah, man, damn dude, like I was like that was the most impressive, and actually that because it was so disciplined, like, and it wasn't me being like, come on, she just did her thing and then got her homework out and started doing it, and it was just so uncomfortable how she was sitting, but she was just like she seemed completely unfazed by it, and that was the level of, because normally at home everything phases her, you know what I mean, like yeah. So that's what I'm saying,
like the behavior is different, and it was, you got a chance to like see like all the stuff that you've been hoping for and like trying to like drill into her, which never manifests itself at home, surprised you when it finally did on the subway. What a wonderful moment.
Honestly, that was really, I mean, I'm very proud and very happy with everything that she's done. But that was such a
she's not listening.
It's okay. I know. You never know. Everyone's listening these days. But just those little moments. It's like it's like what you were saying. To have that someone come back, a teacher come back and be like, boy,
yeah,
your kid is just doing. Someone fell down and like your son picked them up and just stood with him and made sure. I was like, my son.
Right.
But you can't my son. There's two kids named the same in the grade. It's my one, right? Not the other one. It might be the other one. And they're like, no.
But you can't be too surprised in front of those people, right? Like, even though you are shocked when they tell you that, you can't be like, you got to be like, oh yeah. I mean, that's what we love. She's great. That's what we've been teaching her. But instead you're like, who?
No, listen. The parent-teacher conference was 10 minutes. And by the end of it, they're like, sir, it was your son. You're
like, can you show me a birth? Can you describe the birthmark?
Yeah, like what? Yeah.
So it's funny. So VJ Turner 24, Valerie Turner message. She said that her grandfather passed away a few weeks ago, and during the funeral, her 8-year-old saw his mom crying and held her hand, and she was like taken aback at that empathy, right? So like, the kids, sometimes it's just you don't have the opportunity to be in all of the situations to really know how your kids are going to respond in every situation, right? And she was like, usually he only reserves that kind of empathy for like YouTubers that he watches and worships. I know your kids love the YouTubers and
Sure.
Steve from Minecraft. Is that the name of the
main
guy?
character. Yeah, like
Avatar?
basically the default character is Steve. And Steve and Alex. And there's a few, but those are the main.
I don't know why I knew that. You know what? I
Yeah, you don't know
myself.
why you knew it. It's because you've got 7,000 hours in the back of your mind, just like passive exposure.
It seems useless though. That guy doesn't need to have a name, does he?
I don't really know how it is, but it is.
Once you start a game, don't you just like name him what you want?
Yeah, well, it's your handle, but Steve, there is a story. There is actually like a kind of a backstory to the Minecraft universe, if you will. I mean, it's not a universe; it's a world, but like it's on Netflix. Actually, it's really cool. You choose. It's one of the very few shows where you choose.
Yeah, there's a handful of those. Yeah, there's like a nature one too.
Yeah, you like choose which way you want to go. Like the nature one is good too because it's like, do you want to slaughter them now or do you want to befriend them? And it's like you get to choose which one, like Bessie the cow, if it's like food or if it's just like a milk cow, and you get to decide.
What about you just want to kill for fun? Is that an option?
Yeah, yeah. That's called the American way.
So most of the responses that I got were along two lines, like a random skill or something they didn't know their kids had, or good behavior, right? So Pogo Sarah said that she was shocked at the way her boys just started getting along during COVID. We experienced some of that too, especially at the beginning where they had no one to hang out with except each other, right? And they just started to get along and have a lot of fun. And then when school started again and they have their own friends, they're back to button heads. Did you see any of that? Or your kids get along?
No. No. Still very, very opposed to every. Yeah, no, there's none of that. But yeah, that wasn't one of the things that surprised me.
I had to explain to my son today, who was complaining that his brother, the butting heads, and I'm like, dude, he just knows how to push your buttons, right? And I'm like, you got to not respond, right? Or he's just going to keep doing it, and then you end up getting in trouble because you respond and you overreact and blah blah blah. And I'm like, and he's like, you don't do anything. I'm like, it's just like sibling rivalry. You got to figure out how to deal with it, right? I mean, your mom and I are exhausted by this crap, right? So you need to like work it out on your own. So it goes back and forth. I can't say that I was really surprised in either direction. They get along a little bit and then they don't get along.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I'm always worried. Whenever they start like really laughing and giggling, I'm like, oh God. Like I just like there's like a countdown clock to just like someone's getting a fist somewhere, just like it's happening. Like someone's like elbow, they're wrestling, and it's like everyone's having a great time. And then I come in just before that happens and I'm like, oh Dad, we're having the best time. And I'm like,
yeah. You weren't going to be.
Yeah, you're literally seconds away, and then of course, no, and then I walk away, and like 5 minutes later, just screaming and crying, and everyone's fighting. Yeah, it's just
nothing surprising about that. So I mentioned earlier, Neva _H said that she was surprised that her kids didn't scream or cry when they got the COVID shot, and neither did mine, right? And the really nice part was my older son. They hate shots, like every kid, right? Like flu shots in the past have not gone well. Right. But like my older son held his little brother's hand during it, which was really nice. But the funny thing about the little one, the Hammer, who's almost 6, is he's sociopath levels of like not caring about stuff. Like we were watching that Disney movie Jungle Cruise the other night. So he loves snakes and he loves dinosaurs and he loves sharks. He loves apex predators. And there was a tiger on screen who was like threatening to maul people. And he literally, as we're watching, starts going, "Go tiger, go tiger!" Like as The Rock is trying to like fight the tiger. Anyway, he went to the dentist to get a cavity filled. And they're like, this is pretty small, so I don't think we're going to give you like any Novocaine or anything. So they're like drilling on the kid and filling his cavity, 0 Novocaine. He's just sitting there completely chill, no problem. He's like, I asked him today, like, do you like going to the dentist? He's like, I love going to the dentist. At the end, they were like, oh my God, like, take as many toys as you want. I'm like, they're just shocked that like he just doesn't care.
He made the wall, the patient wall of like, just like.
Have you ever seen like Little Shop of Horrors? There's like a character who's like a sadist.
Yeah.
So he loves going to the dentist, or no, a masochist. He loves going to the dentist to have pain inflicted on him. I think that.
No, the masochist, because isn't the dentist the sadist, but then the masochist.
The dentist is the sadist, and the patient is the masochist. Yeah, so it's a perfect combination. So my two kids are sort of opposite in those ways, which is fun. Although there was one time a little league game, my older son got a foul ball to the face. It wasn't like a real hard baseball like they use and like when you get older, slightly soft. But this is the kind of kid, he gets like a hangnail and like he's like, oh, I can't go to school for 2 weeks. But he took this ball to the face and I'm like, oh shit. But like 2 seconds later, he's totally fine. He went back in the game. It was like one of the most shocking things I've ever seen. So kids can surprise you in all sorts of ways, from pain tolerance to how much they like to inflict pain. It's a lot of fun.
I think also, definitely like what's interesting is, it's your reaction, right, to a kid falling over, and you're like, oh my God, or oh no, or whatever.
Yes, and then they take their cues from you. Yeah.
Something happened the other day is, I'm like coaching soccer. I'm coaching my son's team, and this kid fell, skinned his knee on the turf. Skinned his knee barely, like, he just skinned it, but he's like writhing around Ronaldo style. And I'm like, oh my God, man, I don't know how you're doing it. Just like it was, I mentioned, I was like, you must be made of kryptonite or something. Come on, get up. And, cause he was like down there, like, writhing and I swear to God, that was like early. Every single time he's just constantly like, I made a kryptonite. Just like this really weird. I was just like a throwaway kind of comment.
But he's like, linked it.
He's completely hooked it, and it was part of it, like the resilient. Just immediately kind of coming back. And so that was. It's nice to also see just how. Look, kids are ultimately really resilient, and it's just it's interesting how we. We just spend so much time with our kids. We spend so much time. We've had to
more than any generation, and then on top of that, we had the pandemic.
Yeah. No, but we've had to in the last 2 years, but more than that, and that's the thing where it's just like that going out and just like kind of getting fucking shit up. I don't know, like getting being able to go out and play. Yeah, that's the other thing. Is like really like I think the thing that I really like the best is when you watch your kids play from a distance and you can see them interact. So the point is like it's not that you're watching them per se, but you're just seeing how they interact and like there's like different people, maybe they're being ganged up on or something like that, and you're not like gonna come in and you just want to see how they handle it, and you're like, and then they do and they handle it like well, and they kind of just they're kids, they're just kind of like, all right, whatever, and they just either brush it off or they kind of take charge or whatever, and I think that's really that's it's an insight that I'm sure our parents never even got to see at all, right?
Because they were never around.
Yeah, because they were like, they're like, dude, go to the park. It's that way.
Yeah. But that is a lot of fun, right? Because when you're watching your kids, or when they're like right nearby, they know you are, right? And they probably behave a little bit differently. But if you have a chance to like go stalk them with like binoculars when they're at like the playground, like from a distance, or other people's kids, right? If you just want to get a good look.
And they're like, sir, are you looking for your kid? And you're like, no, my kid's not here.
People love it. And then you
say, leave me alone.
Then you sit Spider on the bench.
Yeah. You mind if I sit Spider with you, buddy? Sure.
So have you noticed, so a bunch of people put like a random skill that like their kids have. Like one woman was like, she was surprised when her son had like perfect whistling pitch when he was like whistling along with a song. Or like one, Heather Pell said her 11-year-old got up on stage to sing a solo and like nailed it, right? So like,
oh my
God,
that
would be like fascinating, especially like if your kid's a little bit shy at home or whatever, just to watch them like kind of come out of their shell or do whatever. But like as they progress through school, I think you're going to find out like that they have aptitude for certain things, like whether it's math or English or like theater or whatever. Have you seen any? Obviously, you have like a ballerina in the family. Like, were you surprised when she showed that she was good at that? Like, and not necessarily she's going to do it for the rest of her life, but like when she started to show she could do it or even wanted to do it, did that surprise you?
Yeah, and just to be clear, she was the one who was like, she tried out when she was like 4, and because she wanted to do it, not because she had been told about something. Anyway, so I'm not totally clear on the details, but she went to some audition and was, when she was very young, as they do, and they take a lot, and then they kind of weed them out. But I was always kind of surprised, actually. I'll be honest, like, I'll throw her a ball and be like, really? Ballerina? Oh, okay. Like,
I'm not seeing it.
There's just like, really? Like, there's a lot of like Michael Bluth, like, really? You're okay. Oh, okay. You're really? Sure. And that's not, but actually, that's she has a lot of she really is so dialed in, and that's the thing that like is, again, so impressive. And again, it's just like, she dials it in when it really matters, and she would do it in class and in her ballet classes, and she would do it in performances and what have you. And so there's that, but that's, like I said, it's not a harm, other than just like, it's really cool to see your kid. Outside of that one moment where she was on the subway, that really encapsulates my entire experience. The entire ballet experience was just that one moment where it was like, that was really cool. Everything else kind of, was sort of like a one progression to the other, and it was good. Right. But I mean, we put in a tremendous, we being my wife and I, and my wife is specifically, like, just taking her there and back. It's like 40. It's like, yeah, it's crazy. So. But, with my other kids, whoever they are, I mean, I'm sure they're going to be great, but I just haven't seen them because all I care about is my one and only child that I.
Well, you're just constantly on the subway with her, shuffling her back and forth. And how do you have time for other kids?
You know what, though? My other kids surprised me in so many other ways. Like, again, my 3 kids are so different. I have 2 girls and a boy, and each one is like so different from the other. It's so funny.
But are they different from you and your wife, in that like you're shocked by certain things that they have that like neither of you show any evidence of being good at or of having those personality traits? Are they just like from a vacuum, suddenly you're like, this thing shows up and you're like, where did this come from? It's so weird.
Well, actually, I mean, it's hard to say. It's a hard thing to say, because I see a little bit of each of us in them, and so it's a little tough. But they kind of skew more one way or the other. But yeah, just like my middle daughter will rarely complain if she's like you have to really go in to be like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, I think my arm is broken." And you're like, what? You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, wait, what? She's like, well, I fell like, 20 feet.
That must be amazing.
And she just is like, she'll just be holding it weird. And you have to go and ask, like, hey, what's up with your arm? Oh, nothing. And then it's like, well, can you move your hand? Not really. And you're like, that sounds really serious. It's like the exact opposite of like, and so it's just different, which is the exact opposite.
So like the other kids would be like really dramatic about it.
Other kids, oh my God. My son skinned his knee in soccer, and oh my God, dude, I was like, bro, like you got to chill. Like it's not even bleeding, and it was really. I mean, I had to like keep it together because it was. I mean, he was tears, but it went on, like it didn't stop. And okay, so that was like a negative surprise, because I'm like, dude,
it's like, a hard situation.
I know, I get it. You like skin your knee, and it's like it's a little bit of skin rash, like a road rash, but like
it definitely sucks. But like it's a hard situation, right? Because you've got to show that like you're concerned, like you don't want to dismiss their pain, right? But you also got to let them know that you need some kind of perspective when it comes to the pain. Like this isn't really that bad, right? But you can't be seen like by other people. You can't be being like, shut up, it doesn't really hurt, cut it out, right? Like that kind of stuff, like trying to get them to chill. But they need to chill because they didn't get shot in the gut, right? You're not dying.
I mean, that's the thing. There's actually, so it's not just like yes or no, right? It's like there's like a spectrum. You kind of go through the spectrum, like, oh God, you're like, oh no, and you're like, and you're like that moment of empathy where you're like, oh dude, that hurts so bad. I know it stings, and you're like, holding them, and you're like, it's gonna be okay, just breathe and like count to 10 or whatever kind of, you're just like, I totally got you. And then there's like 5 or 10 minutes after that where you're like, okay, no, I mean, like, dude, you skinned your knee. Like we had a full 3 to 5 minutes of just like consoling, and now we're at minute like 10.
I need you to ramp down.
You gotta chill. You gotta really, really chill out, because like and then it's funny because it's like, all right, dude, like just stop. Like you gotta take a breath.
I'll try to do something really goofy, like if my 6-year-old or he's not 6 yet, my 5-year-old gets hurt or something and he's like really overreacting. I'll make sure he's okay. If there's blood, forget about it. Like there's no calming that down. But if there's no blood, I'll just try to get him to calm down, and then eventually I'll just be like, you want me to take my shirt off? Like just say something really random just to get him to start laughing, and then it'll be like laughing and crying at the same time. And I'm like, I can take my shirt off. It'll be cool. And be like, no, right? Then he starts crying again. But for totally different reasons, right?
There you go.
Then I have taken my shirt off, and then everyone in the area.
No, then Mom and Barry starts crying, and then everybody's crying. It's just like, it's a knock-on effect.
Speaking of surprising, like nobody's more surprised than everyone around when I take my shirt off, right? Nobody wants that kind of surprise.
That's what the clapping is for. When people are like, when they're just immediately erupting in like a mad applause for someone brave enough
to take their shirt. Well, someone like me, it really does take a lot of bravery.
No, just like in a kid's playground, when a grown man takes his shirt off, that's generally when people start applauding. At least that's
what's good is usually like I'm not often wearing a shirt under my trench coat, right? So it works. It's really convenient.
It's just really easy. It's just the trench coat just kind of slips right off, like right around the shoulder.
Like what it's about.
Those off the shoulder trench coat look is a tight look for a guy.
It's what you were wearing when you went to Dune. So I did. There weren't a ton of other different comments, but there was one I wanted to bring up where actually two. So Remy _ Mangar REAMY _ MANGAR said that his 1-year-old or her 1-year-old runs full speed at his crib headboard and doesn't flinch, just laughs. Like that's the kind of thing, like even though it's like a toddler, like a baby, that's a little scary. Like just like I'm into this, what I'm doing. I don't know, I'm a little concerned. You scare me a little bit. But this one, Dad Does All. I'd like to talk to this guy. He sounds a little bitter. Dad Does All is his name. He says that his kid painted art of mommy, daddy, and himself on the bathroom wall with her own feces.
Oh God, dude.
Oh God, no. At least it was the bathroom wall.
But that's an interesting, because that's a I mean just a.
I don't know how old she is.
Touching. Yeah, I don't know either, but. I
would be shocked and alarmed, probably more than surprised. I don't know what my reaction would be. I've been lucky enough that none of my kids have like shit during bath time.
We had a great shit during bath time story. So I had I think.
Is this the tail thing?
Yeah, my daughter, my middle daughter was I think probably like 2. And my older daughter was like had to been 5 or no, sorry, 4. And so anyway, so they're having a bath together, and the next thing we hear is my older daughter's like, "She has a tail. She has a tail." And it was so funny and so gross at the same time. But like just what a great like description of what was happening at the time. Just having a tail.
What a great description of a great event.
It was a beautiful event. I have a beautiful family that does.
Did you take a photo?
Yeah, no, in my mind I did, but
Oh God,
it's
I have
on
a
the dark
photo of
web.
that in my mind. So my dream is that one day one of my kids kind of evidences or evinces some kind of skill that I didn't know they had. And it seems like it's really useless, right? Like my kid really good at video games, right? And my dream is that I'm like the intolerant dad who is like, fuck video games, you need to study and get great A's. But like secretly my kid is like entering a competition where if
Yeah.
he wins, he becomes like a video game designer and he wins $8 billion and all our
Yeah.
problems are solved. But I'm still really angry and I'm going to stop him from going to the tournament. But then I get there and I'm in the front row and I see what he's done and I'm shocked and surprised and oh so proud. Sort of like what happens at School of Rock when they all end
Yeah.
up at the concert at the end and the kids are tearing it up and the
Yeah.
guy who like hates his son because he's in like fourth grade but like playing rock music and then he
Right.
realizes my son is actually a money machine because
Yeah.
he's a prodigy, right? That's what I want. I want to make a lot of money off my kid's special talent that I don't actually know he has because I don't like him at all.
Right. That I think is,
The
and I'm
dream.
gonna I'm gonna speak for all parents. The dream is where you all you have to do is just show up, and they've already figured it all out,
Yes.
and
Yes.
then they win the tournament or the prize money or whatever. But you just have to show up without the police escort, which is probably
Yes.
what the parents should have done in School of Rock, seeming as their teacher kidnapped or took all of the students.
Yeah, and at one point they suspected he may have like touched them inappropriately, like based on the stuff he says, right? So yeah, there should be cops involved, but instead they buy tickets.
That's a great movie, by the way. That's
I
I'm
love
gonna
it.
add that to the Christmas list because it is during wintertime as a Christmas family movie. I'm putting it on early.
I don't think
Yeah,
that like I love that movie. I don't think it qualifies as a Christmas movie.
I'm
It's not
saying
about
put
Christmas and it's
it.
not even in Christmas. It's not adjacent to
Yeah,
Christmas.
yeah. It's cold. It's cold out when they
Just because it's cold, what if it takes place in Alaska? Or is every movie that takes place in Alaska a
Alaska.
Christmas movie?
Well,
I'm
yeah.
just saying.
It's a lot
If it
of.
takes place in
It's a
Alaska in
lot
June,
of.
does that count as Christmas?
You know what? Yeah, there's a lot of Christmas. There's still reindeer.
Those are caribou.
Oh my
What's
God,
the
I care.
difference?
I care about you.
Oh my God. I don't care about you.
God, that's tough.
I care about Dune.
Oh my God, me too. But I think, look, our kids will surprise us and you in many different ways, and I think that's cool.
And me.
But
They're definitely going to surprise me. Your kids surprise the hell out of me. I don't even know what
yeah,
they look like.
they
Shocked.
keep surprising. Well, they look like Kato from
No,
Pink
but I
Panther.
do think that's a great point that you made, that like the dream is that your kids get really good at something without your involvement and then you just cash in on it or get
Yeah,
to be proud of it without actually having played a part.
and I want to stress the cash part, right? The
Yes.
cashing in. As a parent, you've done your due diligence, which is, well, I mean, you had them, and then you kind of just you're, angry and aggressive, and then they do something amazing, like Bruce Springsteen.
Just like Bruce Springsteen. Did you read his memoirs?
I didn't.
I think
Is
he's
it
written more than one.
memoirs?
I
Or
think
is
he's
it,
written more than one, is why I said that.
no.
I think he's written several.
I've only read Cash by Johnny Cash. That's the only real memoir that
I read
fiction that I've
well,
read.
so there was an autobiography? No, it was a biography.
It was an autobiography. No,
Oh,
it was
what?
an autobiography. It was Cash by Johnny Cash. So
Yeah.
yes,
I've
it was
read
an autobiography.
I've read Chronicles Volume 1 by Bob Dylan, which is like he purposely was like, I'm just gonna write about this period in the 80s that no one really cares about because I'm Bob Dylan and I do whatever I want and like I'm a dick on purpose. But it was still interesting. Like he spent a lot of the book talking about one of the albums he did in the 80s, which is like not considered. It's being revisited now and reappraised, and actually it's
Yeah.
actually quite good, but not one of his classics.
Well, didn't he win the Nobel Peace Prize for literature for his songs, and he fucking returned it?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's
he
when
was
he
okay.
jumped the shark. When people were like, "Okay, dude, you're old. No one can understand what you're talking, or no one can understand what you're saying." And not only that, but you're being honored in a real way, for in a very abstract way. So your lyrics are going to be considered literature because
It wasn't the
so
Peace Prize, it's just the Nobel Prize for literature.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You said the Nobel
Okay.
Peace Prize.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Get your head out of your ass.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm going to put it further up. Thank you very much. Where it belongs. Yeah, man. But our kids, they're gonna surprise us, and
I will say that's one of the fun things, and it's not always fun, but it's one of the fun things about parenting is discovering who your kids are and what they're good at as they grow up and stuff. Whether it's something they've inherited from you that they kind of, standing on the shoulders of giants, right? They pick everything up from you and then they get better at it, or if
like
it's
your
something that
Honda
you weren't.
Accord, if they
Like,
inherit that from you or something, that's a pretty
um,
big thing to stand
I
on.
inherited a Pontiac Grand Am from my grandfather.
Yeah.
With a spoiler, two-door, aqua green. Fucking, it
Whoa,
wasn't aqua.
was
It
it
was
have
more like,
nitrous in it? What did it have, nitrous?
yeah, it was me and Vin Diesel. The movies.
The family is all about family.
But I will say that is one of the fun things about parenting and that's one of the reasons. So my wife, when we did an episode about this a few weeks ago about like it's bittersweet about watching them grow up and they grow up too fast and all that stuff. But like from the very beginning, I've written about, like, I'm excited like to see who they become and what their personalities are and what they're good at and all that stuff. And that's sort of what we're talking about here.
I'm so with you.
Right?
This is the best, man. I mean, so I know we started when our kids were younger and we said it, what we said, we had a whole episode on what's the worst age. The worst age is simply 18, like, no, 9 months to like 24 months. It's just there's a huge swath where you're like, this is intolerable. Like, I have
no upside.
Yeah, there's like I'm like, there's a thing that's walking around screaming that has the power to tip things over and shit themselves. And I'm 100% responsible for every action that they do. And you're like, fuck this shit real hard. And by the way, like, you're just constantly like at each other because it's exhausting and everyone is working and blah blah blah. However, we used to make this joke that like the "it gets better" speech, like it doesn't with parenting, but I think there is a turning point. I think when your kids, to your point, like they start to show some aptitude for something, and you don't have to. Personally, I love having a high school age daughter, which sounds totally antithetical to the sort of norm of like, I don't want my daughter to. First of all, like they're, she's not locked in there with them. They're locked in there with her. Like she's there's like, I'm worried about her if she's dating anyone or whatever. But the point is because it's the personality. That's the fun thing.
Yes.
Like when you sit down and you can have a conversation, you can have a joke, or they make you laugh. That's great. Like when your kids make you laugh,
it's amazing.
Intentionally.
Yes.
That's cool. Like, and they do it like they time it well, and now they go on and they just repeat it for the next
forever.
6 months. Yeah,
once they get a hit, they run it into the ground. Yeah.
But I don't know.
But I tell you, so my kid's in middle school, and so as we wrap up, my kid's in middle school, and he comes up to me one day. He's like, Dad, what's the name of that band that sings that song? Believer or whatever. And I go, Imagine Dragons. He goes, Imagine dragging these balls across your face. I made sure to not laugh because I don't need that stuff happening. But I immediately tweeted it out and was talking about how I was proud of him.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. What's 19 in French, according to my 13-year-old daughter?
What's that?
19.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What's this going around, this D's nuts thing? It's like made a comeback. It's everywhere.
Whoa, what is this thing? This D's nuts. That was like the height of comedy gold when we were in middle school and high school.
Yeah, I guess you know what? It's evergreen.
Remember Johnson t-shirts?
Oh my God, Big Johnson, liquor up front, poker in the rear.
Those
Big Johnson casinos.
Oh my God, those things were so dumb. Those and like, they would be like some kind of sport. It'd be like life is, and then you insert a sport, and then like all else is just details. And somehow I always confuse the Johnson t-shirts with the life is details.
I just never forget Big Johnson casinos, poker up front, liquor up front, poker in the rear. It's just a flawless joke. You're wearing that shirt.
You know what? It's like it's sometimes when lightning strikes, you just have to capture it in a bottle and put it on a t-shirt.
I desperately wanted those shirts. I don't think my parents ever let me get one. Thank God. God, I don't need a picture of me wearing that these days. It's like Justin Trudeau in blackface.
Is it?
A little bit. Except there's no photo evidence.
Okay, well there you go. Yeah, keep your photos to yourselves, everybody, and make sure your kids do the same.
Honestly, especially if there's one of their tails in the bathtub, we don't need to see that.
Unless it's the dark web, in which you can get a lot of money.
Oh my God, disgusting! All right, so that will do it for this week's episode. I think we'll wrap it up. I will let you know if I see Dune. I'm trying to hold out for the theater.
Thank you.
I will. Okay. I will let you know. I'm shocked and surprised, to stick with the theme of the episode, that you really liked it, and that again, even more shocked and surprised that you liked David Lynch's version.
Oh my God! Do yourselves a favor, everyone. Watch David Lynch's version of Dune first.
You know, it's like widely considered atrocious, right?
That is what's so interesting, because it is actually so, like, I mean, from a story arc point, there's so many different. There's obviously a protagonist, the main protagonist, but there's so many different characters. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously it's a very complex story, and the use, and this is, I thought, the thing the most interesting, the use of narration. Yeah. Was actually crucial to that movie. So, being able to, for that particular character, they all do it, but for them to do narration in their own minds makes a very complex story so much more salient, and actually kind of moves it along in a way that the new one doesn't. Because you have to spend so much time being like, but Mom, I thought you were going to do this. Right. But Son, I thought you were going to do it. Yeah.
On the upside, Sting, as far as I know, is not in the new one. So that's a positive.
Is it a positive? I think it's a negative, dude. I want to see his fan. Oh my God, dude, his glistening hot body when he comes out.
We're going to wrap it up on that one, folks. And on Sting's glistening hot body.
Yeah. You go watch it, get a screen grab of Sting's glistening hot body.
And then take a cold shower.
That's right, everybody. All right. Thanks so much.
Next time.
Love you so much. Talk to you later.
Peace. I don't know why you would still be watching This Isn't a Marvel Movie, no matter how much I look like Paul Rudd, which you can deny it all you want. It's there in the eyes, I think. I'm young looking like him. If you enjoyed the podcast, which you obviously did, or you wouldn't be listening still, sign up on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you want to listen to. Comment here on YouTube, subscribe, hit that like button. We want to hear from you. Comments, questions, dirty jokes, money, all the money you can give us. We'd love it all. Catch you next time.